Thousands of years ago, in the middle of the desert, a civilization was born that tried to conquer death, that created the world's most mysterious structure, the pyramid. Imagine a world where there is only sand and scorching sun all around, but through the middle of it flows a river that gave birth to the world's most mysterious civilization. And centered around this river, the ancient Egyptian civilization developed, which ruled the world for more than 3,000 years. Written on the stones of the pyramids is the story of a nation's dreams, power, and faith. Today we will dive deep into that story. Thousands of years ago, when humans had not yet learned to settle permanently, they were nomads. They wandered from place to place in search of food and water. In the heart of the vast Sahara Desert, they searched for the only source of life water. Wherever they found water, they would settle there for a few days, then set out again in search of something new. But eventually, while wandering through the desert, they found a river. Everything started with this river, a river whose name was the Nile River. Thousands of years ago, from the deep jungles and mountains of Africa, this river was born. After traveling a long distance, it flows northward, cutting through the heart of the desert, where there is only endless sand and dryness all around. This river becomes their only source of life. Every year at a specific time, the Nile River overflows. Flood water spreads all around, and with that water comes fertile silt soil. After the floodwater recedes, a layer of fertile black soil would remain on the riverbank. The Egyptians called it Kemet, meaning black soil. Agriculture began in this soil. Initially, they cultivated wheat and barley. There were also vegetables, onions, garlic, lentils, and among fruits, dates and grapes. They created an irrigation system using the river water. Water was taken to the fields by cutting small canals. The soil was plowed with simple wooden plows, and farmers would scatter seeds by hand. The crops would grow in time. Then the harvesting work would begin. The crops were cut with handmade sickles, and the grain was separated by threshing with oxen. This grain was their main sustenance. They made bread from wheat, which was their daily food, and from barley they made a type of beverage, beer, which in those days was not just a drink, but part of their food. They also ate vegetables, fish, and occasionally meat. The Nile River didn't just give them water, it gave them food. It gave them life, which created a green, wonderful land in the heart of the desert. It was the pull of this fertile land that first led people to start settling here. Small families, then villages, and gradually the first settlements were built. People learned how to farm, how to use river water to grow crops. This is how the seed of the first civilization was born on the banks of the Nile River. Time kept passing. The villages kept growing. Eventually, they took the form of small cities, and from these cities were created small kingdoms, which were called nomes. Each kingdom had its own ruler, its own laws, and its own power. But history does not always remain divided. Eventually, a powerful ruler named Nama united these small kingdoms. He built a vast unified kingdom, and this is how ancient Egypt was born, and that ruler became history's first pharaoh. In Egypt, a pharaoh was not just a king, he was a living god. They considered themselves children of the sun god Ra, and the human form of the sky god Horus. The pharaoh was a bridge between heaven and earth, through whom the will of the gods reached the people. So, ordinary people could never touch the pharaoh, and even standing directly before him was a matter of great honor. The pharaoh's word alone was law. He decided whether there would be war or peace, how much tax to pay, where temples would be built. He wasn't just a ruler. He was the controller of an entire civilization. And even after death, his power did not end. The dead pharaoh was buried with royal dignity, and later he was worshipped as a god. But it was not possible to run such a vast empire alone. Below the pharaoh was his most trusted assistant, the vizier, who was a kind of prime minister. Then came the provincial governors, who were called nomarchs. They handled responsibilities in different regions, and the backbone of the entire administration was the scribes. They recorded tax collection accounts, laws, government orders, and even history. In this way, from the pharaoh to the common people, the Egyptian empire was run through a strong chain of command. But the question is, how did these people living in the middle of the desert become so knowledgeable? How did they acquire the knowledge with which they built such massive, such precise pyramids? Stones weighing thousands of tons, arranged one on top of another in the heart of the desert, so precisely that it amazes modern technology even today. Did they have some lost technology, or some knowledge that is still unknown to us? The answer lies hidden in the Nile River itself. Every year, floods would come and erase everything: land boundaries, cultivation lines, everything. Then the Egyptians would be forced to measure everything anew: land area, distance, boundaries. This is how the basic concept of mathematics was born. They kept their knowledge preserved. They were the first to start making paper from the papyrus plant. They created the world's first paper, and on that paper, they wrote medicine, science, history. They would look at the sky, observe the movement of stars, try to understand when the Nile would swell. This is how they created a calendar, a 365-day year, which we still use today. So just think about it. Perhaps their knowledge was much deeper than we imagine. But where did these stones weighing thousands of tons come from? How did they build the pyramids? The stones used to build the pyramids were brought from various places. From Aswan in the far south. These stones were sometimes brought from 800 kilometers away. But at that time there were no trucks or cranes. So, how did they bring these massive stones? The Nile River was also a vast transportation system. Stones were brought by boat close to the construction site. Then from there, these massive stones were placed on wooden sledges or cart-like platforms, and workers would pull them with ropes. There's another surprising fact. Water was poured on the sand to reduce friction and make pulling the stones easier. The ancient Egyptians didn't build pyramids just by placing stones. They created nature's own natural cement. Limestone was carved, broken, and made into powder. Then this powder was mixed with river water. A paste like cement was created. This natural cement was used to fill the gaps between stones, and the blocks were firmly joined to each other. As a result, the pyramids have survived for thousands of years. The most amazing thing is that the stones were cut so precisely that even today it is difficult to insert a blade in the gaps. In 2017, scientists discovered inside the Giza pyramid a massive unknown empty space in the Great Pyramid of Giza that had never been seen before. The position of the pyramid is determined in such a way that it aligns with specific constellations in the sky. The proportions and angles of the pyramid are so perfect that they show evidence of the use of advanced geometry. This proves how precise the ancient Egyptians' techniques were. But why were these massive pyramids built? First, for the pharaohs. The pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a symbol proving their divine status. The Egyptians believed there is life after death, and the pharaoh would travel to the afterlife with the gods. Pyramids were built so that the pharaoh could rest in peace and his soul could reach the sky. So after death, the bodies of pharaohs were preserved so that their souls could return. From this belief began the mysterious process of making mummies. To immortalize life after death, they started this strange but precise process, and the preparation for that journey would take 70 days. The brain of the corpse was removed through the nose. Then the abdomen was cut open, and all important organs like lungs, liver, stomach were removed. These organs were stored in separate containers called canopic jars. Then the body was immersed in a special salt. This salt would absorb all the moisture from the body and completely dry it out. After a few days, the dried body would be carefully wrapped in linen cloth, and thus a mummy was created. Then it was placed in a decorated coffin, which was its eternal home. And through this mummy-making process, they learned to understand the structure of the human body, the function of organs, and preservation techniques. This knowledge eventually took the form of medical science. In the Ebers Papyrus, more than 700 medicine formulas they created were found. They didn't just observe, they learned and applied that knowledge. They understood that if knowledge is not preserved, it will be lost. So they also found a way to preserve their knowledge. So they created a mysterious script through pictures and symbols, writing hieroglyphics. On walls, stones, temples, pyramids, everywhere they wrote and left behind their knowledge, their beliefs, and their immortal history. Thus, in trying to conquer death, they created an immortal treasure of knowledge, science, and history. But the question is, the nation that built so much knowledge, so much power, such a vast empire around just one Nile river, they disappeared into the depths of time. The civilization that was once one of the most powerful in the world, whose knowledge, architecture, and power made everything tremble. What happened that gradually broke down that irresistible power? Was it external invasion or internal weakness, or some cruel form of nature that stopped their progress? History says no empire is permanent, and the story of the Egyptians is a living example of that. Like every great empire in history, Egypt's powerful empire eventually stood on the brink of collapse. Everything started with nature itself. The river that once gave them life, that river's behavior began to change. Regular floods decreased. The fertile soil began to lose its strength. As a result, crop yields decreased. Famine spread everywhere. Food shortage, people's suffering gradually weakened the entire society. And at that very time, fragmentation began from within. The pharaoh's governance system became weak. Power struggles began in the royal family. Provincial governors no longer wanted to obey central orders. Their unity as strong empire turned into small divided powers. But the danger did not end here. When Egypt was becoming weak, collapsing from within, that's when external eyes fell on this prosperous land. The first blow came from the Hyksos. They were desert warriors, fast-moving and terribly strategic. Their greatest strength was horse-drawn chariots. They would come rushing like storms and destroy everything. As a result, Egypt's powerful soldiers could not withstand their tactics. As a result, for the first time, Egypt was defeated by this new war technology. After that, even more powerful empires came one by one. The Assyrian Empire attacked from the north. Then came the Persian Empire. They not only attacked, they turned Egypt into a province of their empire. But history did not stop here either. The last major blow came from Alexander the Great. Under his leadership, the Greek forces conquered all of Egypt in a short time. And through this, the rise of an independent Egypt ended. Those who were once rulers became subjects of another empire, but their knowledge, their creations, their history still stand immortal in the heart of the desert. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe for the next video.